Hi everyone, this is Mike Dirksen, and we are going to review what we covered in BCA Introduction to Web Design. Okay, this is day 1. Okay, so we're just getting started, and we meet on Wednesdays, 7:40. Right? Everybody, yeah. And so we meet in PC 229, so the login there is a little different. We'll talk about that in a minute. Last name, first initial. This was the initial password, one or the other, and then you had to set a new password based on complexity, so you'll need to remember what you used for your password. Alright. So, we talked about the course. A lot of people in the course are involved with graphic design. They may already have a job or working towards getting a job, etc., etc. At least they have an interest in graphic design. And of course, the web in relationship to graphic design is hopefully has obvious connections. Okay, so if you're a graphic designer, you should understand basically how the web works. Okay, so we're looking for this understanding here of how the web works. So we, in order to do that, understand websites and so forth, we'll create a website, okay, and try to give it a nice design when we do that. There's a number of things we'll learn, but first of all, before we get to that, there are a couple areas here. We will use development software, or we'll do some coding, and it'll be a combination of the two. Most of the coding, I don't want anybody to panic, most of the coding, we'll be typing some HTML and so forth, that'll be done during the class sessions. Okay? So, when the class meets, we hope to do most of the coding. Now, when you get pretty good at that, some of the students, they'll just, go ahead and start expanding on that with their own ideas. But we'll get you started in the class, and we've got a website that we're going to use for the coding. For the development software, we're going to use content management systems, and what we'll be using primarily is WordPress. Lots of resources for WordPress. We're using WordPress Learn, and it's right from WordPress. There may be easier or different approaches, but that's what we're going to do in here. There's a lot of ways to have a web presence. There's a lot of different ways. All the way down, if you have a Facebook, you have a presence on the web. You can create with Wix, for example, a free website. You can create websites using Google. And then eventually you can get up to creating using some development software or actually code it yourself. We're not going to make you experts at coding, but the more you look at code, the more you understand how it works, and that's our goal. Our goal is for you to understand how web works so you can better make use of development software to develop a website. At least get a good start. All right. Keep moving. So, we already have talked about this. We've talked about the internet. Internetwork. And how we use the internet to move through two different locations. Okay, so Canvas has a web presence. Okay, in which you use it for class management, LMS, learning management system, and we can access Canvas through the internet and get to the information stored there. You can get to Facebook. We talked about getting to Google through the internet. We reviewed a little bit on the fact that we have a separate IT area. That's why we have a separate login in that area. And then from there we can connect out to the internet. Okay. And there are some ways to actually communicate to the NIACC network. And we're going to learn more about that as we venture in. This first couple weeks are going to be what we're going to call tech weeks. We're going to get a lot of technical terms. You don't have to memorize them. You don't have to have them all down pat. But we want to work at, so we have this list of terms. When we talk about different things in terms of technology, we're all on the same page. Or at least we can look up what we want, what I want you to have in terms of tech. Okay? Now, you might say, I didn't think it was a tech course. Well, it's not, but this does allow us to understand better how this all works in terms of, movement from one location here, going to a web server here, or maybe a cloud here where your home is, and how do you get from there to a web server here, how you're going to get to a web server up here. We're going to do that in this class. Just a basic technical understanding plus the terms. You might be the web or the graphic design expert, but you need to talk to everyone else. And a lot of times somebody in there is going to be the IT people. And they're going to want to talk technically. Okay? Now, here's a good thing. The Dirk rule. The 15-30 rule. The Dirk rule. I made this up, by the way. If you're working on some particular piece of technology and you're working, and you're trying to get it to do a particular thing, whatever that thing might be, and you can't get it to work, my suggestion is you make sure you spend 15 minutes on it, but when you get to 30 minutes and it still doesn't work, I would quit and go do something else. Okay? Quit and go do something else. Don't spend 2 hours trying to get something to work when it might be just a simple thing you don't see. That happens in technology all the time. It happens in technology all the time. Okay, so we use this rule, and you say, well, what happens when I get to 30? You can send, it's a Dirk rule, you can send me an email. And I may or may not be available to answer it right away, or a text through my Google number. Okay, that's probably the best thing, one of those two. Now, it might be such that we have to use WebEx to answer it, get online and look at what we're doing. Or, if it can wait, you can just ask when we meet in class. When we come to the classroom and log in and meet in class. And then we can take care of that. Okay, so this is just a repeat. We've already covered this in terms of, it sounds pretty repetitive, but this is just the interstate that gets you where you want to go. If we're at NIACC and we use Google, we go to there. If we're at NIACC and we use Canvas, we're here. If we're at home and we use Canvas, that might go here for a single log sign in and then go to there. Okay? You don't need to know all the details, but you should know that these things are not in the internet. The internet is our way to move through there. And then the invention of the World Wide Web allows us to use browsers, hypertext transfer protocol, and HTML to make it easy to move through the internet. World Wide Web uses the internet. Okay, let's repeat. A few last items in terms of terminology. Okay. We talked about what the cloud is. Most people realize what we mean, or at least a start. Already talked about this. We said lots of technical things we'll cover, but you don't have to memorize them. By the way, all exams, a reminder, all exams are open book, open notes, open web. So you can look up, check, so forth. Okay, so you don't need to memorize a bunch of things, but you'll need to understand some concepts. Okay, I went over what the World Wide Web is. It uses the internet to send things around, and we'll call it the web. And just for fun, we talked a little bit about this here. This is more of a maybe advertising concept, but when you look at a piece of paper, like an 8.5 by 11, there's kind of a sweet spot where everybody's eye tends to go to. I think it's still that way. And so then in this wasn't something like an ad I once saw. You could have this scenario to where here is the stuff inside, and it's running down here into a glass, filling this glass up, and here's what they want you to remember. So when you first glance at this, your eye goes to the sweet spot, sends you down to the glass, you read the product name, and typically if it's a magazine or a web page or something, you typically go on to the next page. And here is the fine print that you end up not reading, but it has to be printed. Anyway, we'll talk a little more about some of those designs move through the course. Alright, so you should be able to find it in Canvas. Okay, and let me know if you're having any issues with working through Canvas, through the course, or any of the materials. Remember, you want to start with the modules and work your way down through them. Okay, and everything should be available for you. Okay, I think everything's working fine. Let me know if it isn't. Okay, thanks. That's it for today. Signing out.